Gareth did not plan to stop. He was tired. His boots were worn through at the heel and his pack was heavy with dried herbs and bandage cloth. The mountain road was long and the next village was still half a day's walk away. He had patience waiting. He had no time. But then he heard it. A sound so small he almost missed it. A thin, weak cry coming from somewhere below the road. He stopped walking. He stood still and listened. The wind moved through the pine trees. The cry came again. Quiet. Desperate. Gareth stepped off the road and looked down into the ravine. The rocks below were wet and broken. A section of the hillside had collapsed recently, pulling dirt and stone down in a rough slide. At the bottom, half buried under loose rock and mud, were two small shapes. He squinted. Then his stomach dropped. Drakes. Young ones. Very young. No bigger than large dogs, with dull gray scales still soft with youth. One was pinned under a flat stone. The other was pressed against it, trembling badly. Gareth stood there for a moment. He told himself he had no time. He told himself they were wild creatures. He told himself a grown dragon could appear at any second and take his head off for getting close to its young. Then the pinned one let out another small, broken cry. He was already climbing down before he finished the thought. The slope was loose and steep. He slipped twice and cut his palm on a sharp rock. He did not stop. When he reached the bottom he moved carefully, speaking in a low and steady voice. Not words. Just sound. Just something soft and calm so they would know he was not a threat. The free one snapped at him. Tiny teeth, but quick. Gareth pulled his hand back and waited. He did not rush. He crouched low and stayed still and let the creature look at him. A minute passed. Then another. The snapping stopped. The small drake pressed its nose forward and sniffed the air near his hand. Gareth moved slowly to the flat stone. It was heavy but not impossible. He worked his fingers under the edge, braced his feet, and lifted. The stone shifted. He pushed harder. It rolled aside with a dull crash. The pinned drake did not move right away. One of its front legs was bent wrong. Its breathing was shallow and fast. Gareth opened his pack. He worked quietly and carefully in the fading light. He cleaned the wounds with water from his flask and a cloth soaked in herb solution. The injured leg was not broken all the way through, just badly sprained and torn at the joint. He packed it with a soft poultice and wrapped it gently with bandage cloth. The whole time the little creature shook but did not cry out again. The other drake stayed close, watching every move Gareth made with wide, unblinking eyes. When the light was gone, Gareth made a small fire. He had very little food. A bit of dried meat, some hard bread, a few scraps left from the morning. He set a small piece of meat near the drakes and moved back. They stared at it. They stared at him. Then the uninjured one crept forward and took it fast, like it expected him to snatch it back. He gave them more. He ate the bread himself and gave them the rest of the meat. The night was cold. The mountains pulled the warmth out of the air fast once the sun went down. Gareth wrapped his traveling cloak around his shoulders and sat close to the fire. At some point while he was half asleep he felt something warm press against his side. Then something warm on the other side. He opened his eyes. Both drakes had moved against him, one on each side, small bodies trembling less now, breathing slower. He did not move. He sat very still and let them sleep. By the time morning light came gray and quiet over the mountain, the injured drake was able to put a little weight on its wrapped leg. Both of them were awake before Gareth was, sitting and watching his face as if waiting for him to open his eyes. He packed his things slowly. He stood up. He took a few steps toward the road. He looked back. They were following him. He stopped. He looked at them. They looked at him. The injured one limped forward one careful step, then another, and sat down close to his boot. Gareth let out a long breath. He turned back toward the road and kept walking. With 2 drakes at his heels. Gareth named them on the second day. The smaller one, the injured one, had a patch of dark scales along its nose that looked like a smudge of ash. Soot. The other one was quicker, brighter, always moving toward warmth and light like a moth near a candle. Pip. They were not pets. He knew that. He told himself that several times a day. They were wild creatures that happened to be walking in the same direction. That was all. Pip did not behave like a wild creature. Pip ran ahead on the road, doubled back, ran ahead again, and then sat on Gareth's boot every time he stopped to rest. Soot stayed closer, always within arm's reach, occasionally pressing a small warm head against Gareth's leg for no reason at all. He told himself it meant nothing. He kept walking. By the 3rd day they reached the lower valley road and the small village of Dunford came into view through the trees. Gareth needed to restock his herbs. He also needed, if he was being honest, to ask someone what to do. Because 2 young drakes following a human down a mountain road was not a normal situation and he was starting to feel the weight of it. The village went quiet when he walked in. Not the polite quiet of a small place where strangers were rare. A different kind of quiet. The kind where people step back and stare and do not say anything because they are not sure what they are looking at. A woman pulled her child inside a doorway. 2 men near the well stopped talking entirely. Gareth raised a hand. I mean no trouble. I am a healer passing through. I just need a few supplies. Nobody moved for a moment. Then an old man near the inn door stepped forward. He had a gray beard and a walking stick and the slow steady look of someone who had seen too much in life to be easily frightened. He studied Pip and Soot with narrow eyes for a long moment. Where did you find them? The old man said. It was not really a question. Ravine up on the North Mountain Pass. Rock slide. They were trapped. The old man was quiet. He stepped a little closer and looked at the scales along Soot's neck. Then he looked at the faint pattern that ran down Pip's back. A series of small interlocking marks, almost like a chain of rings pressed into the scales. Gareth had noticed them but thought nothing of it. The old man straightened up and looked at Gareth with an expression that was equal parts pity and alarm. You know whose marks those are, the old man said. Gareth shook his head. Those are the sovereign's marks. Every drake born of the royal bloodline carries them. These 2 belong to Sorrel's line. The old man paused. Sorrel. The dragon sovereign. The one who rules every flight from the Ash Peak Range to the southern coast. Gareth looked down at Pip and Soot. Pip was chewing the edge of his boot. I did not know, Gareth said quietly. Doesn't matter much what you knew, the old man said. There is an ancient law. No hand touches the sovereign's kin without permission. No human hand especially. The dragons take that law very seriously. He looked at Gareth steadily. You touched them. You wrapped one of them in bandages. You fed them from your hand. The words settled over Gareth like cold water. He stood there for a moment thinking through his options. He could leave the drakes in the village and walk away fast and hope nobody ever connected him to this. He could take a different road entirely, disappear into another region, and never speak of it. He looked down again. Soot had pressed against his leg and was looking up at him with calm, quiet eyes. Gareth picked up his pack. Which road goes toward Ash Peak? He said. The old man blinked. You are going to take them back yourself? Yes. That is either the bravest thing I have ever heard, the old man said slowly, or the most foolish. Probably both, Gareth said. The old man studied him for another long moment. Then he went inside and came back with a small bundle of dried meat and a cloth pouch of traveling herbs. He held them out without a word. Gareth took them. He nodded once. He turned toward the eastern road. The road that led into the mountains. The road that led toward the Dragon Sovereign's stronghold. Pip ran ahead immediately, tail up, completely unbothered. Soot limped faithfully at Gareth's side. He walked. The road to Ash Peak took 4 days. It was not a road that welcomed travelers. The path grew narrower with every mile, the trees taller and darker, the air colder and heavier. There were no villages past the second day. No farms. No other travelers. Just stone and wind and the distant shape of the mountain growing larger ahead. Gareth kept walking. Pip and Soot stayed close. Closer than usual. Even Pip, who normally ran ahead and doubled back a dozen times a day, stayed within a few steps. The mountain seemed to affect them too. They were quieter here. More careful. Like they knew where they were going. On the third night Gareth heard wings in the dark above him. Large wings. Very large. Something passing high overhead in the darkness, circling slowly. He did not see it but he felt the displaced air move through the trees. He sat very still by his small fire and did not look up. Pip and Soot pressed flat against the ground on either side of him and made no sound at all. Whatever it was, it did not land. By the fourth morning the path opened onto a wide flat shelf of rock near the mountain's base. And there it was. The stronghold was not built. It had grown. Massive stone formations rose in rough columns and arches, shaped over centuries by dragon claws and dragon fire into something that was both wild and deliberate. The rock was black and deep red. Ledges lined every surface, and on every ledge there were dragons. Dozens. Then more. Then more beyond that. They were all sizes. Some small, some enormous, some so large their wings spread wider than a barn roof. Every single one of them was still. Every single one of them was watching. Watching Gareth. He stopped at the edge of the flat rock shelf. His heart was beating hard and fast. His mouth was dry. He thought briefly about the old man's words. Bravest or most foolish. He was beginning to think he knew the answer. Pip sat down next to his foot. Soot pressed against his leg. Gareth took a slow breath. He straightened his back. He walked forward. No dragon moved. No sound came from any of them. Just hundreds of ancient eyes following one small human crossing a stone courtyard on foot with 2 young drakes at his heels. The silence was the loudest thing Gareth had ever heard. He stopped in the center of the courtyard. At the far end, on a shelf of rock that rose like a natural throne, lay the largest dragon he had ever seen. She was the color of deep ember, dark red fading to near black at the tips of her wings, with scales that caught the pale morning light like old iron. Her head was enormous. Her eyes were gold. Old gold. The kind of gold that had been sitting in the dark for a very long time. Sorrel. She did not move. She simply looked at him. Gareth did the only thing that made sense to him. He stepped slightly forward, looked up at her directly, and spoke in a clear and steady voice. My name is Gareth. I am a traveling healer. 8 days ago I found these 2 on the North Mountain Pass. There had been a rock slide. One of them was trapped under a stone. The other would not leave its side. He paused. I did not know whose they were. I only knew they were hurt and alone. So I helped them. His voice did not shake. He was proud of that. I have brought them back to you. I am not running. I am not hiding. If I broke your law I will answer for it. But I will not pretend I would have done anything differently. They needed help. I helped them. He stopped talking. The silence came back. Sorrel looked at him. Just looked. Her gold eyes moved slowly from his face to Pip and Soot, then back to his face. She did not speak. She did not move. The dragons on every ledge around the courtyard remained perfectly still. A minute passed. Then another. Then another after that. Gareth did not look away. He kept his eyes on hers and his feet on the ground and his breathing as steady as he could keep it. Soot pressed harder against his leg. Pip sat down directly on top of his boot. Sorrel's gold eyes stayed on Gareth's face for a long, long time. And still she said nothing. When Sorrel finally spoke, her voice was like stone moving against stone. Deep. Slow. Each word carrying weight that Gareth felt in his chest rather than just his ears. "You are not afraid," she said. It was not a compliment. It was an observation. Like she was noting the color of his coat. "I am very afraid," Gareth said honestly. "I am just more afraid of lying to you than of standing here." Something shifted in her gold eyes. Not warmth exactly. Something older than warmth. She was quiet again for a moment. Then she straightened her great head and spoke in a voice that carried across the entire courtyard. 14 days ago Pip and Soot were placed on the North Mountain Pass. Gareth went still. "Placed," Sorrel said again, making sure the word landed. "Not lost. Not abandoned. Set down carefully in a known location by two of my most trusted. The rockslide was real. Their injuries were real. Everything else around them was arranged." The courtyard remained silent. Every dragon listening. Gareth looked down at Pip and Soot. Pip looked back at him with bright unbothered eyes. Soot blinked slowly. He looked back up at Sorrel. "A test," he said quietly. "We have done this before," Sorrel said. "Many times over many years. We place the young in a place where travelers pass. We watch from a distance. We watch who stops and who does not." She paused. "Most do not stop. They see what they are, recognize the danger, and walk faster. Some stop long enough to look and then leave. A few throw stones." Gareth said nothing. "In 14 days, Sorrel continued, you were the only one who climbed down." The words sat in the cold mountain air. Gareth exhaled slowly. He was not sure what he felt. Something between relief that he had not broken any law and something heavier that he could not quite name. "You watched the whole time," he said. "Every night. Every camp. Every meal you gave them from your own hand." Her gold eyes did not blink. "We watched you wrap the leg. We watched you give them your meat and eat bread yourself. We watched you sit still in the cold so they could sleep against you without being disturbed." Gareth looked at the ground for a moment. Then back up. "You could have just told me," he said. "No," Sorrel said simply. "We could not. A person who knows they are being watched behaves differently. We needed to see what you were when no one was looking." He had no answer for that. Sorrel shifted her great body slowly and rose to her full height on the stone shelf. Even from a distance the size of her was something that pressed against the mind. She spread her wings slightly, not in threat, just in the way of something that had carried enormous weight for a very long time and needed a moment to breathe. "There is a title," she said. "It is old. Older than this stronghold. Older than the current flight lines. It is called Warden of the Flight." She looked directly at him. "It has never been given to a human." Gareth opened his mouth. Then closed it. "It means something specific," Sorrel continued. "It means you are recognized by the Sovereign's flight as a protector of the young. It carries obligations. It carries protections. Any dragon anywhere who sees the mark of the Warden will know what you are and what you have done." Gareth shook his head slowly. "I am not that," he said. I am a traveling healer. I walk from village to village and I fix what I can and I move on. I did not do anything a decent person would not do. He shook his head again. I just could not walk past something that was hurting. That is all it was. Yes, Sorrel said. He waited for more. There was no more. That is exactly all it was, she said quietly. And that is everything. Gareth looked at her. He looked at the hundreds of dragons on every ledge around him, all watching, all silent. He looked down at Pip sitting on his boot and Soot leaning against his leg like a warm stone. He thought about the road. The ravine. The cold night. The small broken cry that had stopped him when nothing else would have. He had not done it for a reward. He had not done it for recognition. He had done it because the sound of something small and hurt was a sound he had never been able to walk away from. He looked back up at Sorrel. Her gold eyes were steady on his face. I still do not feel worthy of it, he said. I know, she said. That is why it is yours. Gareth tried one more time. I appreciate what you are saying, he said carefully, looking up at Sorrel. I understand what the title means to your kind. I do not want to dishonor it by accepting something I have not truly earned. There are better people than me. Stronger people. People who have given far more than one cold night and a bit of bandage cloth. Sorrel looked at him without expression. I am just saying, Gareth continued, that perhaps this should go to someone who deserves it more. Sorrel said nothing. Gareth looked down. Pip and Soot had pressed themselves firmly against both his legs. Not gently. Firmly. Like two small warm walls that had decided they were not moving. Pip looked up at him with an expression that was, somehow, deeply unimpressed. Soot had closed its eyes entirely, as if the matter was already settled and there was no point in discussing it further. Gareth looked back up at Sorrel. They are not going to move, are they? No, Sorrel said. And if a dragon could sound quietly amused, she did. He stood there for another moment. He thought about arguing further. He looked at Pip. He looked at Soot. He looked at the hundreds of dragons watching from every ledge in complete silence. He thought about the long road here. The cold nights. The dried meat he had given away. The stone he had lifted with cut hands in fading light. He thought about the sound that had stopped him on the road. He exhaled. All right, he said quietly. Sorrel descended from her stone shelf. Gareth had thought he understood how large she was from a distance. He had been wrong. Up close she was something that went beyond size and became something else entirely. Ancient. Solid. Like a piece of the mountain had decided to take a shape and breathe. The heat that came off her scales was steady and deep, like standing near a forge that had been burning for 100 years. She moved slowly and with great care. She lowered her head until it was level with Gareth's chest. Her gold eyes were close now. Close enough that he could see himself reflected in them. Small. Pale. Standing very still. She spoke in the old language. He did not understand the words. But he felt them. They moved through the air differently than regular speech, slower and heavier, like each word had roots that went down into the rock beneath his feet. The dragons on the ledges around him responded in kind, a low sound rising from hundreds of throats at once, not loud but deep, a sound like the mountain itself was agreeing to something. Sorrel lifted one great claw. Gareth held out his right hand without being asked. He was not sure why. It simply felt like the right thing to do. The tip of her claw touched the back of his hand. It was hot. Not painfully hot. Just present. Certain. Like being touched by something that had existed long before he was born and would exist long after. A mark formed slowly on his skin. Not burned. Pressed. A small interlocking pattern, the same chain of rings he had seen on Pip's back, sitting quiet and permanent on the back of his right hand. The low sound from the ledges rose once and then faded into silence. It was done. Gareth lowered his hand and looked at it for a moment. Then he looked up at Sorrel. "Take care of yourself, healer," she said. "The road is long and you are only one man." "I always have been," he said. He picked up his pack. He turned toward the road that led down from the mountain. Pip immediately ran ahead, tail up, completely delighted, as if this had all gone exactly according to plan. Soot fell into step beside Gareth's left boot, warm and steady and close. He walked. The mountain fell slowly behind him. The air grew lighter as he descended. The trees opened up and the sky came back, pale blue and wide and ordinary. The road stretched ahead the way it always had. Villages waiting. People who needed a healer. Work to do. But something was different now. Something quiet had settled in his chest. Not pride. Not quite. Something simpler than pride. Something that felt like belonging to something larger than himself without having asked for it. He had walked up that mountain thinking he was returning two lost creatures to the place they came from. He understood now, very clearly, that he had been wrong. He had not saved them. They had saved him. Found him on a road he had been walking alone for years and simply refused to let him walk it alone anymore. Pip circled back, ran past his feet, and disappeared around the next bend in the road. Soot pressed closer. Gareth walked on.